Hi. Do you remember in the very first presentation I referred to planet Earth as like a very large corporation with many interrelated businesses, franchises and associations? And if we go back to that analogy, what sort of business health do you think we're in today here on planet Earth PLC? Let's then look at this global situation purely as a business problem. So imagine now that you're a major shareholder in this corporation, which you are incidentally, and let's look at the various issues individually. Virtually every single business, brand, franchise and association within Planet Earth PLC are competing against each other. As the owners of this enormous corporation, it's clear that this does not make good business sense. We have to stop competing with ourselves, cannibalizing our own interests on every level. We must share resources, both physical and human, and we must consolidate and streamline for more efficiency. Why have 1,000 warehouses when a dozen automated ones would be far more efficient and help reduce pollution? Why have hundreds of thousands of employees when a fraction of that number would be required with the right technological solution? Why have thousands of logistical companies delivering our goods when one amalgamated company would be far more efficient? Our CEOs are not communicating, are in fact fueling this unnecessary competition. Each sector of our company operates as an autonomous entity with its own agenda, and there is no meaningful cohesion at all within our company. The crux of this issue is a lack of company goal, a vision statement that should unify all the various companies in a unified effort to make our company stronger, and to allow each division, brand and service provider a clearer understanding as to what their specific role is and what their market should be. And we do not have a universal staffing policy for all of our employees. Some receive very good benefits and others none at all. Salaries and benefits widely vary across our organisation, which creates confusion at best, disharmony and resentment at worst. With a lack of universal rules and regulations, it's actually possible for an employee to act in a certain way within our guidelines and then step across an artificial boundary and find themselves in trouble with human resources for exactly the same act. This also fuels the ever-growing bureaucracy that takes away the employee's own initiative and creativity. It slows the entire company down and wastes immense resources which could be better used in a more constructive manner. And we even have a significant amount of employees officially in a state of poverty and even homelessness, despite many of our companies throwing away food and resources. Our PR and media divisions care more about who and how many read their articles than actually about reporting on the true facts. Very often influenced by the CEO and directors of that organisation. We're sourcing goods irresponsibly in the main with no binding company directive on fair trade or even sustainability. Some companies have made token gestures, but we can only make a meaningful impact if all our businesses operate in a more responsible manner. And only through a concerted effort can we make our company the social, ecological leader we have to be to ensure the future for us all. Yes, it is that serious. And the final element, and possibly the most significant threat to our future, is the ongoing and immense physical waste of life, fighting over resources and ideology within our organisation. Yes, war. This sector has virtually no benefit to our organisation whatsoever and needs to be ended immediately. These resources are also vital to the future prosperity of our soon-to-be united company. And if I were to summarise this business, it would be a business put at risk by its current senior managers and advisors. But on a positive side, It is a company with immense potential, as the middle management and the workers are of the absolute highest calibre. If you were a shareholder, you would see that the current management, our board of global directors, are really not fit for the job. And they've proven this time and time again by the results we witness ourselves, that we see with our very own eyes. They do not have the vision to take this organisation to where its true potential lies. And there is only one solution if we're to guarantee the future of our own business: a hostile takeover by the company employees. Wait a minute, hostile does not refer to physical violence, although I know some that would support that. Instead, it refers to a takeover without the current management's approval. So we will effect this takeover with the aim of turning Planet Earth PLC into a co-op, a company run for the benefit of its workers and the customers alike. So we're really looking for a win-win solution, except maybe for the 1%. To save the company and all its billions of employees, we must replace the senior management with qualified personnel, knowledgeable and skilled in the areas required for running a global free society via the core councils we discussed previously. And that was the main purpose of the previous chapter, Strategy 6, Unite and Conquer. To connect with the people that really make the world go round. Those with the great experience working in industry, healthcare, teaching, design, etc. These are the very people that will replace the old and outdated current form of global leadership, and will be directing our new society to achieve our goals and our aims. There is nothing wrong with a company's employees. We saw this evidence throughout the entire world as the coronavirus destroyed our economies and shattered many family futures. Remember, it wasn't the bankers or financiers that kept the world going. It was the doctors, nurses, delivery drivers, store workers, technicians. These are the people that have the skills, the commitment and the desire to see our company flourish and prosper. And therefore, finding a management team experienced and capable of heading each core council, country council and regional council will be one of our priorities. More on that soon. But we are getting slightly ahead of ourselves here. Let's start at the beginning and look at the entire plan in order. Our mission now is to form the Global Free Society version 1.1. We now need to take action if we're to make a difference, a real difference in the world. Let's break it down into 8 key strategies that form the outline of our plan to introduce the Global Free Society to the planet, and then run through each stage one by one to see exactly how we can make this a reality. These 8 stages are as follows. The vision statement: form initial council, form political parties, identify first phase countries, attain power, remove old political system, invest in our future, referendum on moneyless society, and put plan into action. Phase 1, vision statement. Now, right at the beginning we discussed how important a vision statement would be in unifying the global population. So hopefully now you've seen the entire concept, you'll agree that this is absolutely critical if humanity is to pull together in the same direction. Now, I offered an initial draft just to explain the concept and also to hopefully give the aesthetics, the morals, the freedoms and an idea on how visionary we can actually afford to be. But now I think would be the time to invite those more gifted with words to share their own ideas. Global Free Society is on all major social media channels, so there will be somewhere for you to share there. And at some point in the near future, we'll find a good way to share the best versions that we feel represent the ideology. And we'll find a way so that everyone can vote for their preferred version, Humanity's Vision Statement 1.1. But at the same time, we need to be thinking about what the future looks like, physically I mean. And if we believe that the Venus Project is best placed to start the ball rolling, then they will be the organisation we will need to consult. So this would represent the very first baby steps in looking to the future and seeing how creative and inspirational we can actually be. But we need to start working in the now and making progress in advancing the whole Global Free Society concept today. So we'll come back to the Venus project a little later. So let's now move to phase 2, form the initial councils. So let's start with the core council first, because our major task here is to start building our core councils. And we need to start recruiting people from all the previous disciplines that we outlined. So industry, agriculture, education, etc. But these people do not necessarily need to be the future directors at this stage, but they must have experience and qualifications within their own speciality. For their job role is to do the initial groundwork until we know exactly what mix of qualifications and experience we need to head the core councils. So these initial core council members can be from any country, but must know how the industry works at a global level. And their remit will be to identify the right mix of people that we need to work collaboratively for to come up with a global solution to their particular category or channel. So as well as being caretakers, these initial members need to be recruitment consultants as well, so to speak. As and when we get these initial members on board, we'll then need to start working on our plans for that particular sector. So we'll need to start the country inventories that we discussed in previous presentations. So we'll need to know by country total output, potential output, physical and mental resources, what volume of goods are imported, exported, etc. So all the information we need to allow us to then compare each country accurately against each other. And this is necessary to work out what the very best mix of countries would be if we are to initiate a moneyless society. The inventory report would form the basis of our research into what level of income we would expect through our nationalised companies and export potential. So for example, if we nationalised a telecommunications company, what revenue do they bring in from outside of our proposed borders? And the research would also indicate what natural resources could be potentially overproduced, again allowing us to export and realise an income for that global trading. And this would also give us an indicator as to what brands would not be available temporarily in our society. But just because we don't have a certain brand within our borders, it doesn't mean that we cannot have access to that brand. That all depends upon what the total demand for that brand or product is and how much income we can receive to allow importation. And remember, as we're buying at wholesale prices, our spending power is much, much stronger. So for example, if we know that collectively our countries purchased $100 million or pounds or euros of a product at retail value, our cost price would be much, much less. So for us to import that retail value, it would cost us less than half, sometimes less than a third, depending on which product category that we're discussing. So having that much buying power really does give our society a massive advantage when acquiring goods from overseas. So that product you purchase for $100 would likely cost our society $30, so much, much cheaper. And which brands or goods we do import will purely be based on two things. One, our ability or non-ability to provide the goods ourselves, and two, the popularity of the goods in demand. So this represents a massive job, and at this stage we can only gather so much information. But it should be enough to give us a strong indicator as to where our priorities should be focused at this early stage. And this data will also allow us to start considering which countries should be considered for the second phase, the third phase, etc. Certainly enough detail to start our initial planning, which is exactly where we are at this stage. Phase 3, form political parties. There are only two options open to us if we're to see real change in the world. And the first is through physical violence. And this cannot be a course of action for the Global Free Society on moral grounds, but even on a strategical level, this really is not the answer. The only way to beat the current system is to play it at its own game. So, unfortunately, we have to create a political party. Or to be more precise, many political parties. As this is a global initiative, then we must prioritise the countries that we've highlighted as the phase 1 countries and also start work seeding in the second and third phase countries. But our political party will be different, very, very different. Firstly, and very importantly, our political party will be made up of industry professionals, not career politicians. So each political party's organisational chart will look exactly like the core council charts that we've viewed several times now, with each segment, each specialisation being made up from people that actually work and have experience in that particular division or channel. So when we have to talk or debate on any topics, we have the right people to address any debates with authority, with industry knowledge and with experience. And this means we can deal in facts and not spin, and wouldn't that be a nice change of affairs? The next big difference is in what we're offering, what we stand for, which is of course a united and brighter future for humanity. Not just your local area, your country, but the entire planet. So a global solution to our global problems. Now, what political party currently offers that? And of course it offers freedoms in all senses. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom from debt slavery, freedom of choice, freedom from overreaching governments, freedom from unjust laws, freedom in the largest sense possible. So yes, the Global Free Party, as that's what we'll need to call each political aspect of our global initiative, will offer more than any other political party this planet has ever seen. The result being each political party in each country working together, sharing resources, sharing knowledge and sharing research. And at the centre would be the Global Free Society acting as the facilitating council, which is a role we've discussed in previous presentations. This is the people of planet Earth taking back the control and future of our species. We will not be handed these rights, these freedoms, this vision of a better future where everyone is treated as an individual. We'll have to take it back. We'll have to offer another alternative to the current outdated systems. One that we can prove and detail through our own research and experience is viable. And the only way we can do that, as I said previously, is to play the game ourselves, to become a united and global political party determined to correct the path that humanity is currently on. So now let's look at phase 4, identify first phase countries. So from our initial research, we will have identified what countries would possibly give us the best chance of success in the first phase of our global rollout. But possibly is not good enough. We will need access to quality researchers and quality data. This is very, very important, as quite early on we will need to make a commitment and decide where we place all our efforts and commit our resources. And I'm guessing our resources will be quite limited at this stage, as this isn't really an initiative that the world's current major philanthropists will want to support. But once we've made that decision, we can then start detailing our rollout plan and communicating this to the rest of the world. This then will allow us to start a more detailed plan for our long-term vision plans. So if we did decide that the Venus project team were the best guys to handle this, then they would be charged with this extremely important aspect of our future. And their goal would be to take the identified countries and create a presentation on how we would adapt our current cities, towns and villages to achieve our long-term goals of sustainability and pollution-free environments. And to do this, they would need to work closely with the professionals within our core political councils, currently known as the Global Free Party. The end result would be a visual and technical representation of what our future could look like. And it will show how we can incorporate our existing cities into our new ideology. And it will show what new facilities we would need to build, what existing facilities could be reappropriated to suit our future needs. And we would also need to consider production. Is it fair or ethical to have the largest proportion of global production in only 1 or 2 regions on the planet? Would it make more environmental sense to look at a complete production solution by continent? This would offer a fairer share of the labour required and reduce pollution and waste through needless global shipping. At this stage, the Venus project remit would not be to find a final solution, but to look at the many options we have available, to then present those options to the global population for their input, their views and their opinions. And from that input, we can then refine and perfect our long-term vision statement and plans. What we're trying to achieve here is a design system, designed with an end goal in mind, and to move away from the organic, inefficient system that we witness today. It's that very organic grown system that is behind most of the problems we face today globally, and it's largely responsible for the overuse of our resources, pollution and damage to our ecological system that we need to protect and ensure our own survival. So in short, we need to commit, we need to invest and we need to expand at this stage. Phase 5. Attain power and remove old political systems. So the goal here is to attain political power within each of the countries that we've identified as initial phase. And once we've achieved the goal of becoming the ruling party, we can then offer a referendum, a chance for everyone to vote on the prospect of abolishing the current political system and installing a system of pure democracy. Because of course we can't do that without a majority vote, as that's what the global free society is all about, the people's choice. So to do so without a vote would be the most enormous example of hypocrisy. Before we can propose a referendum, we would need to demonstrate two things. The first one is that we have an alternative system that utilises a technology that is completely safe, one that is completely secure and cannot be attacked, so as secure as the current banking systems we have in place today. The second part is to demonstrate an example of how the new voting system would work. So, for example, what channels will be used to show the debates that lead up to a vote? How the voting system would work, and exactly to what level would a national vote be required, and how often, etc., etc. Only once the population has all the facts can we actually expect them to make an informed and important decision on their own future. But once that decision has been made, it will ensure we have the building blocks to then further our plans of uniting the initial countries with a view to realising the much larger plan of global unification. So what I'm saying is we don't have to reach power in each country and install pure democracy all at the same time. It's only once we've achieved that system of pure democracy in all the initial phase countries that we can then move on to the next phase. But is gaining power in our target countries such a pipe dream? Firstly, I can't even remember how many times people have said to me they find the current two-party system absolutely ridiculous. How voting left or right doesn't ever change anything in real terms. Well, not in a positive manner anyway. And voting for another party apart from the main two is just a waste of a vote. Well, this may have been true in the past, but no other political party has ever been as different as the global free society. No other party has ever had so much to offer compared to this new system, which promises to deliver such a much needed and overdue overhaul of our current global outdated systems. So on paper we should be able to gain the support of enough disenfranchised people to make this a reality, because trust me, there are plenty of them out there. And the only thing that will hold us back is our inability to convey the benefits of our new system, and to convince the current populace that we can now govern ourselves better and fairer, and that removing the financial incentives in politics is for everyone's benefit globally. And I think we're actually quite capable of doing that. And in fact, given the right resources, I know we could achieve that. So maybe it's not quite the impossible pipe dream you may have first thought it was. So phase 6, invest in our future. So once we've achieved our political aims in each country and installed our system of pure democracy, then we can disband our political parties. So these members would then naturally become the members of the council for that particular country. And their job is now to work with all the other councils globally in a collaborative effort to further our aims. So remember, their role is not to exert their power anymore, but to research and plan for our future. To then present their findings, their recommendations to our population globally and let us decide through our newly installed system of pure democracy. And this is a very key phase in our society's development. And if we are to pursue the idea of a moneyless society, we must now invest more heavily into the hows, whys and whens. But the good news now is that we have access to funding through our governmental budgets. So we can now invest more heavily into our plan for a united humanity. And this research will drive the data we require to complete our global planning process. And we can utilise this research in many ways. So to forecast the savings on all our collective resources through consolidating our production. And to start working on how longevity would impact global consumption positively, but by how much. So how recycling built into products at the design phase would bring us in line with our sustainability goals. It would also give us a strong indicator as to how much pollution the new system would reduce. And also how many jobs would likely be released by removing the monetary system. And what natural resources do we have in abundance or in shortage? Plus many other areas where we know a global free society would have a very positive effect. And this investment in research would not be funded solely by one country. So all countries identified for the first phase would share in the physical cost. And of course, any other countries where we've already set up a political party would also need to contribute. Just because a country is not included in the initial phase, it doesn't mean it cannot contribute financially or in any other way. So we have to always keep the long-term goal in mind here. The success of the second and third phase countries will completely rely on the success of the first phase. So the first phase has to happen to enable the second phase, etc., etc. And we would openly share all economic and resource data because remember, this is a group effort. And at this stage we can start gauging the reaction by the population over who would support our goals by agreeing to work. So a touchy subject, I'm guessing, at this stage. But then we can ask the question, are those indicating a commitment to working enough people for us to transfer freely into a moneyless society? If not, what plans can we put in place to persuade enough people to join our cause? Maybe we do have to enforce people to work initially, but remember, the plan is for the long-term benefit of humanity. But any decisions like that will be made by people through a system of pure democracy. And even then we would have to put a time limit on any requirements or restrictions, and we must always be 100% transparent. We would also then need to increase the funding to the Venus project, assuming that we feel they are the best guys to do the job. And this would be an investment in our future, and their work in this area would shape our collective futures. So their remit now would be to utilise all the data we now have at our disposal and really detail a vision for humanity's future that will unite and inspire us all to work together, united in opportunity. And that visionary work would be separate for each country, as we must recognise the culture and diversity within each region. But imagine if we allocated just 5% of our combined military budget just to invest in this area. And this for me is the really exciting part of looking at our united future. Because we're all so diverse, it would be truly inspirational to see what countries prefer which solutions and how they see their own culture and community developing in the future. It'd be interesting to see what we can all learn from each other in this huge global exercise. But hang on. We must also consider the fact that a moneyless society is not a possibility. Personally, I can't believe we're not intelligent or mature enough to survive without a monetary system, or to devise a system not reliant on money as permission slips. But it is a possibility that we cannot find a way to transition without major upheaval globally. So we must recognise this possibility and plan for it. Therefore, we will need a plan B. So, what fairer systems can we envisage that makes the supply of money more freely available? One that allows all the same benefits that we've already discussed, but for everyone and not just a social elite. And ultimately, plan B would be a failure in my eyes, because a monetary system in any format is still a control system, even if it is a much fairer control system. And remember, who controls the money controls the people. But even if plan B is the only way forward, at least we would have taken back our power and secured our rights. And we would have created a system of pure democracy that is much fairer than today's systems globally. And it allows us a chance of a united, sustainable and co-created future, which is still a huge step forward from where we are today. 7. Referendum on a moneyless society. So this is the point where it would get really interesting. But of course we would only arrive at this point after a fair debate and obviously after a referendum. But at this point we would have done our research, and we would know which industries would need to be nationalised. And we would know what our society-wide income would be globally. And we would know what resources we would need to import to fill any short-term gaps in our own self-reliance. And we would know where we would need to direct our education system to provide the very skills and manpower we all need to become and remain self-sufficient. So with all this information, we could then present that to the wider population. And only when we've all collectively decided to will we move forward with our plans to commit to a moneyless society. And at this stage we will know if the transition will be in 10, 15 or 20 years. But as we know, if we do adopt this slow withdrawal tactic that I've suggested, the quality of life would improve practically overnight, and for everyone. Our personal spending power over this period would increase quite dramatically. And even those less fortunate enough that cannot work could also see an increase in their state benefits. And again, that would be down to us to decide through a system of pure democracy. But as we're turning off the monetary system at the end, it doesn't really matter if we do run up a sizable bill supporting those less fortunate, as we won't need to settle the bill at the end of the day. Just internal bills, of course, but not global trading positions, which we obviously must honour. So at this stage we'll know if the population want to go with plan A or plan B. And it might mean that one country votes against joining our system. Then I'm sure we're smart enough to have another viable option waiting in the sidelines. Another country that already has a system of pure democracy installed and is ready to work with us. But at this stage we already have highlighted the second phase and even third and fourth phase countries. But for sure, the monetary system is a very strong drug, one that we're nearly all addicted to. And I'm sure most people are aware of a term called the Stockholm Syndrome. The definition of that is feelings of trust or affection, in many cases of kidnapping or hostage taking by a victim towards a captor. Does that sound familiar? Humanity has been kidnapped and held captive. And of course, this will be our biggest challenge, to overcome the ingrained conditioning we all feel about this topic. But that's our biggest challenge, and that's actually a very positive situation. Think about it, our biggest challenge will be a psychological one, not a physical one or a knowledge-based problem. a psychological one purely based on people's beliefs. So, with the right facts, the right research, open debate, we can show people the insanity of the monetary system and the huge benefits of removing this artificial control system. So now let's assume we've managed to persuade the majority of the population, and let's now consider putting this plan into action. So phase 8, putting the plan into action. The majority of this section we've already covered in the presentation, the end of the monetary system. But here's a quick summary of the detox plan that we've already discussed. So remember, I'm showing here a 10-year period, but it could make more sense doing this over 15 or 20 years, as we've already mentioned. It all depends upon how addicted, I guess, we all are. But maybe 20 years would offer a better solution due to the additional infrastructure that we may need to build and any other areas that we feel our global spending power would best be invested. So as a reminder, year 1 and 2, nationalisation. So the idea here is to make all essential services free, even though we're still operating a monetary system. So travel, communications, healthcare in all forms, energy, and even banking could be brought into the control of the global free society. The country could look to underwrite any costs associated with these categories that are supplied by independent business owners, so businesses that are not nationalised but affected by nationalisation. So this could be dentists, chiropractors, physiotherapists, etc. And I would also suggest that any independent businesses that are forced to close as a direct result of nationalisation are also compensated. And we could also look to end or at least reduce taxes, both regional and national. And that would all depend upon the global funds and what we believe we would need to import in the short or medium term. So if our dependency on importing was very low, even at the very early stage, then of course lowering taxes for the individual would be a great way to help people in the transition to a moneyless society. So remember, the idea of a slow withdrawal is to reduce the possibility of what I would call the toilet paper syndrome, where everyone panic buys, causing a shortage of a product or product group completely artificially. So having a higher spending power many years before we go moneyless should reduce certain people's instinct to acquire goods for no real reason. And for sure, this will happen when we go moneyless, but these actions that we're talking about will reduce the severity to a manageable level. One that we've already predicted and planned for in many, many ways. So year 3 and 4, we mandate all businesses to apply a 20% discount to their retail or wholesale prices. So obviously this is where we start discounting the retail and wholesale prices, but only within our border. And retail prices would be fixed, and the population would be the eyes and ears of this mandate to ensure that we don't have any abuse of the system. And any businesses that suffer directly as a result of these discounts could be supported by the government to ensure their business remains stable. But only if the business offers a benefit to our larger society members. So a very quick example, if your business was online gambling and your customer base was 100% outside of our borders, then this is not a business I suspect we would support. But I doubt there are too many independent businesses that would be a casualty in this way. So cross-country trade within our society would allow this discount to be applied by mandate. But goods acquired from outside of our borders would either need the government to underwrite any financial loss or require the business to look for an alternative supplier inside of our borders. And if the commodity that needs to be imported was popular or not available within our borders, then of course the support would be given by the government, because it would be to our collective benefit. But I can also foresee some individual challenges that we would need to overcome. So for example, individual persons shipping goods overseas. especially in the later stages of our detox where retail prices will be very, very low, and especially when the goods, there is no monetary system. Certain people might see that as an opportunity to get goods for very cheap or for nothing and then sell them to people outside of our society. The incentive for them will be to gain more currency for them to buy goods from outside of our society, the goods we choose not to import at this time. So it could be, I don't know, malt whiskey or Italian soups, who knows. But with every challenge comes an answer. In this instance, we would need all personal shipments and businesses for that matter to be sent with a copy of the original purchase invoice. So if the goods were purchased at full price before the introduction of the discounts, then obviously there's no problem. People can do as they see fit. But if it was after and attracted a society discount, then of course it only seems fair that the discount is paid back in some manner. An export charge, for example. So the reason I detail this now is that many people will have many questions about how the system could work. At this stage, it's just detailed because with every single challenge we will face, we will find a solution. Nothing so far has ever proved such a challenge as to make this possibility of a moneyless society a non-reality. Everything man-made can be overcome and a solution found. So years 5 to 6 we increased to a 40% discount. Now the discounts, along with the huge personal savings from nationalisation, would really start to have a positive effect on the entire population. Consumption would go up as a result, but we have many medium to long-term tactics to overcome this. Remember, this is a long-term plan with great benefits for humanity. We may have to endure some negative effects initially, but the longer-term view for the planet makes the short-term effect feel almost insignificant. As a reminder, the tactics to reduce consumption and pollution are 1. Consolidation of all production globally. 2. Building new manufacturing facilities that are scalable and allow us to control pollution and allow us to reduce wastage of vital resources. 3. Only manufacturing quality goods with recycling considered at the design phase. No more production of goods just for the sake of turning money. And of course, durability is a byproduct of quality, meaning less consumption overall. And allowing our goods to be upgraded and repaired will also help in this area. This is something that the current capitalist model today cannot tolerate. It requires goods to be outdated and replaced. And don't forget, producing more socially responsible society members through a better education system will foster a much higher level of personal responsibility within our society. Creating a new generation not damaged by the monetary system will also lower our consumption levels as well. So years 6 to 7, 60% discount. So at this stage it would be prudent for people affected by the move to a moneyless society to start considering retraining. So anyone whose job role is primarily or completely involved in the exchange of money, banking, tax collection, accountants, insurance brokers, etc. Of course, many skills held within these disciplines are transferable and would be of benefit in other areas, but certainly not in the huge numbers that we see today. So I estimate the number to be around 30% of the working population or more. But it's just an estimate, an educated guess. But we must also consider reverse migration at this stage. So many Western countries have seen a massive influx of immigrants over the last decade or more, including a large amount of refugees. The motivation for the migrants is clear: to come to a land that offers a better financial prospect and more safety. But with the changes we are now proposing, these immigrants might decide to go back home and help build a new life within their home country, especially if that country is within the global free society, or even if it is to be included in the next phase or the following phase. And who would blame them, especially if they have family there? So, if you're one of these people that is currently against immigration, then you might find you actually miss them when they've gone. as it means that there's less people to do the work that you might need completed. So, years 8 to 9, 80% discount. So by now we should have considered our physical borders. One thing we could not allow at this stage is open borders for obvious reasons. And that's a real shame, as one of the key objectives is to help build a world without any physical borders at all, without any need for permission and paperwork just to allow you to travel on your own planet. But this must be a short-term inconvenience for the greater good. To ensure the longer-term plan succeeds, we may have to make some short-term amendments. But we must also consider tourism. If we operate a moneyless society, I guess we would be of high interest to tourists. Just a flight here and no need to pay. And as they don't contribute with their own efforts, then the goods for them really are free. So I'm sure there are many solutions to this problem, as there are many of the other problems. But I can personally think of at least a dozen to this one, such as a single charge when they arrive at the borders, or if we are utilising a society account with some form of card or credit card acquiring goods, then that could be a solution. And stopping tourists taking goods with them when they go would also need to be enforced. So there is always a solution. Year 10, 90% discount. So I'm quoting 10 here, but more than likely it will be a 20-year period, as that would be more prudent. But now we can start to see how our dependency upon the monetary system is greatly lessened, especially if we had 2 years of a 90% discount on all products and services with no bills to pay for essential services for the last 18 years. So the worry of a toilet paper syndrome would be greatly reduced, if not eradicated, as everyone would have had a long time to adjust to the reality of a moneyless system. And the younger generations coming through our education systems would likely be the most adjusted and find it easier to comprehend. And the Stockholm Syndrome would be minimal, if not eradicated, for them. And at this stage we should have run many campaigns for the wider society, giving the reassurances that the supply of goods and services will not be affected. It's business as usual. We've just removed one part of our daily routine. That's all. So, year 11, or more likely year 21, would be the day we finally turn off the society bank account. Your house is your house, your car is your car, your belongings are your belongings. But most importantly, your life is now your life. And all the internal debts that we've incurred supporting and underwriting our trading over this changeover period are written off. No more mortgage, no more pensions, no more insurance plans, no more healthcare bills, no more student loans, no more financial worries, period. Well, wouldn't that be a party worth attending? So these were the 8 stages we need to action to make the changes in the world that we so desperately need. First job is to create a re-envisaged vision statement to show the principles and ethics of the movement. And we must start to form the council, starting with the core council members from all regions on planet Earth. And once we have our core council in place, we can start research into all the many areas that we've already discussed several times in these presentations. And this research will be imperative to give the global free political parties the credibility and tools to gain support in each and every country. With this data, we can now commit to the key countries and also look for alternative countries and phase 2 countries. And once we've obtained political power in any country, we can then present the benefits and workings of a system of pure democracy and then offer a referendum. And once positively installed, we have removed the ability of any political party or organisation to assert their own agenda on the wider population. And then we must wait until all key countries attain the same status. With access to the correct data and joint country financing, we can now take our research to a far more detailed and collaborative phase. And this is where we really build out our regional plans and start collaborating with all countries globally. And once the referendum has been completed and the results were positive, we can then complete our planning on the rollout for when all the founding countries are ready. All founding countries must be ready at the same time, remember. Once we have reached this point, it's then a question of actually committing and actioning everything that we've planned. Of course, once we get to this stage, we will have an extremely compelling execution plan and all our supply chains will be ready. Our temporary money system will be ready and available, as well as our international monetary system. And the educational system will be ready to support our new requirements, and the healthcare system will be upgraded and improved. And of course, borders will be defined and managed. And we know our likely challenges and we will have plans to overcome them. And lastly, communicating with the entire global population regularly and transparently at this stage will be of the utmost importance. So this represents an extremely simplified summary of our action plan. So these presentations have been a summary of the book Global Free Society. Have I mentioned that before? Free downloadable PDF. So during these presentations you might have questions pop into your head that you would like addressing. And for sure the answer might be in the book, as that does have a lot more detail. But what I would really encourage you to do is become a divergent thinker. How would you overcome that particular challenge, that particular problem? And that's a major takeaway I hope you've received from these entire presentations. All our problems globally are man-made, and all our solutions will be man-made. There is a solution to each and every dilemma that we could possibly face. And hopefully you're also thinking that you would like to help, to participate in making this new concept a reality. And definitely you can help at all stages. So for now, all I'm asking you to do is show your support by making contact with us on any of the main social media platforms. So Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. Depending on when you're watching this, there may be many other options, but definitely those three to start. And if there's enough interest, enough support, then I will progress this idea onto the next stage and we'll take it from there. So your part now is to help spread the word with these three social media platforms, as these are the ideal tools to do that at this stage. Keyboard warriors are definitely a force to be reckoned with in the modern world. So when you see your friends discussing taxes, comment that you wouldn't have these problems in a global free society. And when you see family discussing the poor choices of political parties, comment that you wouldn't have these problems in a global free society. When you see your best friend complaining about having no money at the moment, comment that you wouldn't have these problems in a global free society. When you see anyone commenting on the destruction of our planet, comment that you wouldn't have these problems in a global free society. Animal cruelty, pollution, restriction of rights, wars, increased taxes, school fees, stock market downturns, ecological stories, recreational drugs, retirement topics, border disputes, lack of government funding, unjust laws, pollution. I could go on and on and on. All these topics will be at the very least greatly improved, if not completely eradicated, with a global free society there to administer your wishes, the people's wishes. Just you add in a comment, sharing a link to the main website or presentation will go a long way in increasing awareness. And that's the first stage, the first job we will need to undertake. Do not underestimate the good you can do by yourself just within your own social group. And to help you, I'll put a page on the website with some cool and catchy memes and quotes if you're not that confident with expressing yourself. But just posting links and letting people discover the society themselves is just as good as any comments. Humanity will be facing some very tough decisions in the coming years. So would you like a voice in shaping of your future, or are you happy deferring your choice, your voice to a career politician? Uniting the people of planet Earth is the only solution if we're to tackle these challenges, these issues with any meaningful actions. And it has to be a planetary action plan, not a regional action plan, because that's really not enough. And isn't it time we all took back control ourselves after the many years of extremely poor global leadership, wars, lies and general deceit? Removing the monetary system does seem like an impossible task, I agree, but only at first. When you actually start to see the massive benefits and what little physical changes we would need to make, then it becomes more self-evident. And that's when the term common sensism starts to really make sense. Because it is common sense to remove artificial barriers and take charge of our own destiny. And consolidation is a global phenomenon happening every day. Every day a company buys another company. It then consolidates its staff, consolidates its production, and saves itself more money. The worker is disposed of, so to speak. Every business is looking at ways to reduce their overheads, and staff costs being a major consideration. Now, if you like choice in the open market, then how much choice or quality do you think you will be able to have once each market segment is basically a monopoly? And it will happen in each and every sector sooner than you think. And don't rely on the Monopolies Commission, as they have already proved to be completely ineffective in many global markets. Consolidation in a capitalist market ultimately means less jobs, less choice, less quality, less consumer power and higher prices. Consolidation in a global free society means less working hours, less consumption, less pollution, less environmental damage and quality products. Under the monetary system, consolidation is our enemy. Under the global free society, it is our best friend. And automation is a growing industry at the expense of the worker. Just look at the fast food industry and supermarkets, all pushing self-service solutions. Under the monetary system, automation is our enemy. Under the global free society, it is our best friend. Cost of living is rising, jobs are becoming less and less, restrictions are growing more and higher taxes are being introduced. Consolidation is happening, automation is happening, consumer choice is narrowing, cost of living is rising, job roles are being reduced today in your country, in your town. This is not going to end well for us if we do not change the current system. And that's where the global free society offers the most hope. This ideology is so different, primarily by putting the individual first. Hillary Clinton was quoted as saying, and many other politicians have said similar, we must stop thinking about the individual and start thinking about what is best for society. Well, I think we've tried that and it didn't work. This statement is completely backwards. To guarantee a strong social system, you must put the needs of the individual first. So as the saying goes, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. Society, or any society model, needs to be people-centric, not society-centric. A well-functioning society will be the automatic byproduct of a people-centric system. You need to ensure the happiness of the individual, the freedom of the individual, and you need to recognise the uniqueness of the individual. And that's where I believe the Global Free Society delivers far more than any other social model out there today. The analogy I use in the book is of a high-end Swiss watch. So, if I open the back of a watch, could you identify which component was the most vital? The big cog? The shiny wheel? The small crystal? No, you couldn't, because they are all vital. Even just removing one small part would mean the watch was at the very best inaccurate at keeping time. And at worst, it would stop altogether. And that is exactly how the Global Free Society ideology looks at all individuals. Under this system, each and every job role is essential and needs to be recognised as such and rewarded as such. And we can't all be brain surgeons, and the good thing is we don't all want to be. That's the amazing thing about humanity. We are all so different, but also so very similar. The reason I wrote the book and produced these videos is because, as I've said previously, I'm worried about how our planet is progressing, how our species is progressing. And I actually admitted that I was scared, and I am. To me, it seems crazy that with all this abundance surrounding us, we can't do much better than the huge imbalance we witness around us on a daily basis. We seem to be actually regressing as a species. So I've put this forward as there wasn't any other alternative that I could see. Nothing that was radical enough to make the real changes we need to make to change the current paradigm. And I'm sick of moving the chairs around on the Titanic. It really is time for action, for real meaningful change globally. So you may think that uniting the people of the planet Earth is too much of a pipe dream, unrealistic, unobtainable. But I look at this prospect in a more down-to-earth manner. I view what the Global Free Society stands for and offers as a product that we can take to a global market. And our product is far superior than any other product out there. And therefore the potential market is absolutely huge. Practically everyone on planet Earth is in the market for world peace, for freedom, for prosperity, and definitely for an end to this tyranny. And if we do receive enough support, then we will move on to the next phase and actually put this plan into action. But at some stage we will have to come back to you and ask you for monetary support. I don't think this global model, that this is a global model that the well-famous philanthropists George Soros and Bill Gates would want to fund. Just call it a hunch. And I completely see the irony here. To end the political system, we must create many political parties, and in many countries. And to end the monetary system, we will need money. Money to pay salaries, money for overheads, and most importantly, money for further research. It's the research I'm guessing is where most of our funding will be spent eventually. Funding to look at each and every product category, each individual country, and each channel of distribution, all the areas that we've discussed previously. The list is enormous, but absolutely necessary. The data this research will provide will be the tools that we will need to garner more support globally. Because if we are to progress this global plan, then we have to have the data to convince others. And of course, as we've mentioned before, to convince ourselves. And this research will be very encompassing and I know very expensive. The interesting fact I read the other day. To date, Black Lives Matter has received over $1 billion in funding. Imagine how far we could progress this global action with that amount of financial support. Ironically, the equality goals of the Black Lives Matter movement would be progressed far more through adopting a global free society than any of the actions that they have completed to date, or indeed have planned in the future, as far as I know. I sincerely hope that you agree that we can take this plan forward, and I really hope that you make contact and keep in touch very soon. Especially if you have a skill or knowledge that you would like to share with us to help promote the ideology, because you really can make all the difference. Bush, Blair, Obama, Rockefeller, Brzezinski, Kissinger, Soros have all called for a new world order, and we agree. We absolutely need a new world order, but certainly not their new world order, our new world order. Ambitious plan? Actually, I think it's the most ambitious plan humanity has ever been asked to consider. But there is no point in having a plan and not executing it. And I've really done all I can at this stage, and now it's over to you. And I really hope you share the opinion that we can do a lot better than Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030. So please get in contact, share the idea, and together we can see the reality of our new world order. So thank you very much for listening to me all this time, and bye.